Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. Remi was already running. The corridor stretched ahead of her in impossible length, fluorescent lights stuttering overhead like failing stars. Water covered the tile floor in a thin, reflective sheet, rippling under her bare feet. Each step splashed too loud, too sharp. Behind her, a dragging sound. Not footsteps. Something heavier. Something that scraped. The walls were damp, paint blistered and peeling in long strips that curled like dead skin. The air smelled metallic, wet iron and mildew. It clung to the back of her throat, thick enough to taste.
Stop,
Something whispered. Not in the hall. Inside the walls. She didn't look back. The corridor narrowed. Doors lined both sides, identical and unmarked. As she passed, the handles began to rattle, one by one, metal trembling against metal. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Water fell from the ceiling into the shallow flood at her feet. Except, no. Not water. A black feather floated down instead. It landed on the surface and did not sink. The dragging sound grew closer, a wet inhale. Then, wings, not flapping, unfurling. The lights overhead burst in sequence, plunging sections of hallway into darkness. In the flickering glow ahead, a shape blocked the end of the corridor. Too tall, its head tilted. She could see the curve of a beak where a face should be, the upper half bone-white exposed like a half-skull, the lower half feathered, slick and black. Multiple eyes opened across its brow, blinking out of rhythm. Its wings scraped the ceiling as they stretched. Clawed hands flexed. It did not rush her. It waited. The whisper came again, closer now.
Ascend.
The doors along the corridor burst open at once. Hands reached from inside. Human hands, grabbing at her wrists, her shoulders, her hair. She screamed and woke up choking on air. Her bedroom was dark, silent, dry. No water, no corridor. Just her ceiling fan turning slowly above her. Remi pressed trembling fingers to her throat. For a moment, she could still hear wings inside the walls. Remi didn't move for a long time after waking. The room was still. Early gray light pressed faintly against the curtains. The ceiling fan rotated with soft mechanical patience. No water, no corridor. She swallowed. Her throat still burned. That was new. Normally, the dreams evaporated quickly, reduced to abstract shapes and emotion, but this one clung to her. She could still smell damp plaster, still feel tile beneath her feet, still hear. No. She exhaled slowly and reached for the bottle on her nightstand, 2 tablets into her palm. Water, swallow. Chemical certainty. By the time her phone buzzed, her pulse had steadied. Malcolm. Remi. Need you in my office. Urgent. 8 a.m. She stared at the message. It was 7:12. Malcolm's office smelled like polished wood and clean paper, familiar, orderly. The walls were lined with framed degrees and newspaper clippings from the early years of the paper, back when it had been something larger than local features and state press releases. He stood when she entered. "Thank you for coming in so quickly." His voice was steady as ever, mid-50s, precise diction, tie perfectly centered. "You look tired," he added, softer. "Didn't sleep well." He studied her a beat too long. "Still having the dreams?" Her spine tightened. She hadn't mentioned them in months. "They're manageable." He nodded as if that satisfied him. Then he slid a thin manila folder across the desk. Corvus Ridge Institute. Remi felt something shift low in her stomach. "That facility's under review," Malcolm said. "Public concern, rumors, budget irregularities. We need someone credible to do a human interest piece. Calm the noise. You want psychiatry commentary. I want you." His smile was restrained but warm. "You're the most level-headed clinician in the region. You understand how hysteria spreads." Hysteria. She glanced down at the folder again. A photo clipped to the inside page showed the hospital emerging from fog. Brick exterior, narrow windows, too many wings branching off the main structure. It looked familiar. Malcolm followed her gaze. "It houses its own staff," he added conversationally. "Creates continuity of care. Some people call it unusual." Remi's fingers hovered over the image. "Have I covered this facility before?" "No," he said easily. "But you grew up near that area, didn't you? Thought it might feel close to home." Something in the way he said it made her hesitate. "I was adopted," she said. "I don't have roots there." Silence stretched gently between them. Then, a sharp thud against the window. Both turned. A crow clung to the outer ledge, wings half spread. At first it looked normal. Then Remi noticed the eyes. Not one, not two. Clusters of them bulged across the crown of its skull like black glass beads pressed into wet bone. They shifted and caught the light at different angles, each one blinking at its own slow, patient rhythm. The crow tapped its beak against the glass again, not frantic. Measured, watching. Every one of those eyes was fixed on Remi. She felt a cold ripple along her arms. Malcolm stepped closer to the window. "Persistent creatures," he murmured. "They always come back." The crow did not move. Not until Remi reached for the folder. Then it lifted cleanly into the morning air. The fog thickened the closer they drove. It did not roll in waves. It pressed. Dense and low against the road, swallowing fence lines and telephone poles until the world narrowed to the sweep of headlights and the faint outline of a rising structure ahead. Odin leaned forward in the passenger seat. "There," he said softly. "That's it." Corvus Ridge Institute emerged from the mist in tears. Old red brick at its core, modern glass wings extending outward in deliberate symmetry. Clean lines, controlled landscaping, state insignia mounted beside the gated entrance. It looked immaculate, award-winning, intentional. Remi slowed the car. Above the main building, crows circled in widening loops. Not chaotic, structured. Their silhouettes passed through the fog like cutouts against a gray canvas. "Beautiful," Odin murmured. "You see how the east wing branches? Like a feather," Remi said quietly. He smiled. Exactly. She hadn't meant to say it aloud. As they pulled through the open gate, her gaze dropped to the gravel along the drive. 3 dead crows lay near the curb. Not mangled, not decomposed. Just still, their wings folded neatly against their bodies. Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "Probably hit the fog?" Odin offered. "Poor visibility." She nodded. "Maybe." The lobby doors opened before they reached them. Warm light spilled outward, controlled temperature, polished tile floors reflecting recessed lighting, a reception desk of dark wood and brass trim. If not for the fog clinging to the windows, it would have felt ordinary. Dr. Kessler greeted them with an easy smile. Mid-40s, crisp suit, perfect posture. Dr. Klaust. "Mr. Shaw, we're honored." His handshake was firm, dry. His eyes did not blink often. "We're proud of what we do here," he continued as he led them inward. Corvus Ridge has one of the highest patient reintegration rates in the state. They passed framed awards lining the hall: Innovation in Psychiatric Care, State Excellence Grant Recipient, Integrated Residential Model Pioneer. Employees housed on site, Remi remembered. Continuity of care. She nodded at the explanations, asked measured questions, took notes. Everything he said was reasonable, everything was structured, and yet, as they passed a nurse in the corridor, Remi felt it. A pause. Half a second too long before the nurse smiled, as if she'd waited to see how Remi would move first. Later, during a patient interview, the man across from her spoke clearly, calmly, answered questions with appropriate emotional cadence. But his eyes flicked upward at the sound of distant wings scraping somewhere high above the ceiling. Remi heard it too. A low drag, like something heavy adjusting its weight. No one else reacted. She cleared her throat. "Is there maintenance happening in the upper levels?" Dr. Kessler's smile never shifted. "Old building. It settles." Odin scribbled something excitedly in his notebook. Remi's pen hovered mid-page. The air smelled faintly metallic, like coins pressed between her teeth. And beneath the polished surface of Corvus Ridge, something watched. The interview room was warmer than the rest of the wing. Too warm. The air hummed softly from a vent overhead, though Remi couldn't feel airflow. The walls were painted a neutral gray, meant to calm. The table between her and the patient was bolted to the floor. Odin stood along the back wall, notebook ready, bright with curiosity. The patient introduced himself as Elias Ward. Early 30s, clean hospital scrubs, fingernails trimmed, posture straight. He did not look unstable. He looked composed. "Dr. Klaust," he said politely, "thank you for coming." His voice was smooth, measured, no tremor. Remi offered a professional smile. "I'm here to understand how Corvus Ridge supports its residents." He nodded as if she'd confirmed something important. "They're very supportive," he said. "They help us prepare." "Prepare for what?" His eyes flicked briefly toward the ceiling. There it was again, that faint drag. Slow, heavy. Remi ignored it. "For ascension," he replied. She kept her tone neutral. "What does that mean to you?" "It means becoming what we were meant to be." Odin's pen scratched faster. Remi leaned forward slightly. "And what is that?" Elias studied her, not her face, her eyes. "The wings remember you," he said quietly. The words settled between them like dust. Odin looked up. Remi did not react outwardly. "Remember me from where?" she asked. "You came back," Elias continued, voice still even. "They said you would, that blood always circles home." The room felt smaller. Her pulse ticked once in her throat. "I've never been here before," she said calmly. Elias smiled faintly. "That's what they told you." Silence stretched. The hum in the ceiling seemed louder now. Remi felt the metallic tang again at the back of her mouth. She shifted in her chair. "Who told me?" He tilted his head slightly. The movement was subtle, bird-like. "They keep the saints above us," he said. "We hear them at night, stretching." The drag above them sounded again, this time closer. Odin's gaze flicked to the ceiling tiles. Remi forced her voice steady. "Do the staff encourage this belief?" Elias's smile softened. "No," he said. "They don't need to." The overhead light flickered once, just once. And in that brief dimming, Remi could have sworn she saw a shadow pass across the upper corner of the wall. Large, winged. When the light stabilized, Elias was still sitting calmly across from her. "Ascension is mercy," he added gently. "You'll understand." Her hand tightened around her pen. "For now," he said almost kindly. "They're just watching." A sharp knock interrupted the room. Dr. Kessler opened the door without waiting for invitation. "Time," he said pleasantly. Elias stood immediately. As orderlies guided him toward the hall, he looked back at Remi once more, not afraid, certain. "They remember you," he repeated. Then he was gone. The hum in the vent stopped. Dr. Kessler walked them down the corridor as if nothing unusual had occurred. "Elias has a strong imagination," he said lightly. "Highly suggestible, We monitor language carefully here. Ascension? Remi asked evenly. A metaphor, Kessler replied without missing a step. Patients often reframe recovery in spiritual terms. And the references to saints above the ceiling? Odin added with academic curiosity. Kessler's smile thinned by a fraction. Delusion tends to borrow from architecture. We're built on a ridge, sound travels oddly, as if on cue. A faint drag moved somewhere above them. Slow, measured. Kessler did not look up. Old beams, he said pleasantly. You'll hear settling. They reached the lobby. Polished tile, controlled lighting, receptionist smiling at a computer screen. Normal, almost aggressively so. Outside, the fog had thickened. Odin waited until they were several yards from the entrance before speaking. He wasn't unstable, he said quietly. Remi didn't answer immediately. He was lucid, Odin continued. Patterned, his phrasing wasn't random. She stopped walking. The air smelled faintly of wet gravel and something darker beneath it. He recognized you, Odin said. I've never been here, she replied. You hesitated. Her jaw tightened slightly. Patients mirror, she said. They pick up on subtle cues. Odin studied her for a long moment. Remi, he said gently. You felt it too. Above them, a crow circled once, then twice, then settled on the roofline. Remi's gaze lingered on the upper windows. I want to see the grounds, she said. The grounds? The cemetery. Odin blinked. Now? She nodded once. Yes, now. The path to the cemetery curved along the east wing of Corvus Ridge. The fog thinned as they walked. Not gradually. Abruptly, as if they had crossed an invisible threshold. Odin noticed it first. Strange, he murmured. It's clearer here. Remi didn't answer. The air felt colder despite the visibility. The wind had stopped entirely. No distant traffic, no rustle of trees. Silence settled like pressure against her ears. The cemetery gate stood open, ironwork shaped in subtle arcs that, from a distance, could have been decorative. Up close, they resembled wings. Rows of headstones stretched across the ridge, older markers blending into newer stone, dates carved deep, some weathered nearly smooth. Odin moved ahead, drawn. This land predates the Institute, he said, brushing gloved fingers over a marker from the 1600s. That aligns with early colonial avian augury practices in this region, divination through flight patterns, bird omens. Remi's gaze drifted across the graves. Many shared the same cause of death. Ascension. Not psychiatric terms, not medical language, just that word. A crow landed on a nearby stone. It did not caw. It watched. Odin stopped suddenly. His breath caught. Remi. She turned. He stood before a headstone partially obscured by creeping moss. The name carved into the stone was clean, untouched by erosion. Shaw. Her chest tightened. Family? She asked quietly. I don't. He shook his head slowly. My records trace back 2 counties over. I've never seen this branch. The dates beneath the name were old, pre-institute, pre-state registry. Cause of death. Ascension. The wind stirred faintly then, not across the trees, across the ground, a subtle shift beneath the soil. Remi felt it through the soles of her shoes. A vibration, low, almost rhythmic. She stepped backward. Do you feel that? Odin frowned, crouching slightly. The earth between 2 older graves looked disturbed, not freshly dug, but unsettled. A small black feather pushed up through the soil, not falling. Emerging. Remi stared at it. The vibration deepened for a brief second, then stopped. Silence again. Above them, crows circled once in widening arcs, not chaotic, patterned. Odin stood slowly. This site wasn't built on a hospital, he said, voice quieter now. It was built on something older. Remi's eyes lifted toward the uppermost windows of Corvus Ridge. From this angle, she could see the highest tier. One narrow pane stood slightly open, too high for ventilation, too deliberate for accident. And behind the glass, something shifted. Not bird, not shadow. Larger, watching. The feather at her feet trembled. She did not look away from the window. They're not just above us, she whispered. The cleared air around the cemetery felt like a held breath, like the fog had been pulled back, so they could be seen. The fog rolled back in the moment they stepped beyond the cemetery gates, not drifting, surging. Within seconds, the cleared air vanished, swallowing the ridge in gray density. Odin turned once, as if trying to locate the headstone again. It was already gone. They walked faster. The front doors of Corvus Ridge slid open smoothly at their approach. Warm light greeted them again, polished floors, controlled temperature, receptionist smiling, nothing wrong. Dr. Kessler approached from the central corridor. Enjoy the grounds? He asked pleasantly. They're older than the Institute, Odin said carefully. Yes, Kessler replied. History anchors progress. Remi watched his face. No flicker, no tension, only calm. A sharp tone sounded overhead. Not an alarm, a chime, soft, professional. Routine systems check, Kessler said immediately. We perform them daily. The lights dimmed briefly, then stabilized. The air shifted, subtle at first, then heavier. The metallic scent returned, stronger now. Remi's ears popped faintly as if pressure had changed inside the building. Odin looked up toward the ceiling. "That sound again?" he murmured. This time the drag above them was unmistakable. Long, slow, like weight adjusting across beams. A second chime sounded, different tone, lower. The receptionist's smile did not falter. "Residential units are entering temporary lockdown," she said calmly, as if announcing lunch hours. "Please remain in public corridors." Remi's stomach dropped. "Lockdown for what?" she asked. "Patient movement protocol," Kessler replied smoothly. Down the hall, heavy security doors slid shut with hydraulic finality, one after another. Odin's excitement was gone now. "That wasn't routine," he said quietly. Remi felt it then. Not sound, not vibration. A presence descending. The air above them seemed to bend. A feather drifted down from somewhere unseen. It landed on the polished tile between them. No vent above, no visible source. Kessler's eyes flicked briefly to it, then back to Remi. "You'll want to stay close," he said gently. The overhead lights flickered again, and in the dimming, a shadow moved across the far end of the corridor. Large, winged, too tall for the ceiling. A scream echoed from somewhere deeper in the residential wing. Cut short, silence swallowed it immediately. The receptionist continued typing. Kessler's smile softened. "Old building," he said again. Another door sealed shut, this one between Remi and Odin. They both turned at the sudden separation. Metal sliding into place with final, deliberate force, Odin slammed a hand against the barrier. "Remi!" She stepped toward him, but the corridor lights blinked out. Emergency red illumination flooded the hall, and from somewhere above her, wings unfurled. The emergency lights cast everything in diluted crimson. The polished tile floor looked darker now, thicker. The shadows stretched wrong along the walls, bending upward toward the ceiling. Remi did not move. The metal door between her and Odin had sealed completely. No handle, no visible override. "Odin," she called once. The sound felt swallowed, no echo, just red silence. Above her, a slow shift. Not frantic wings, measured adjustment, something testing weight. She forced herself to breathe evenly. Lockdown protocol, structural stress, electrical interference. There is an explanation. The drag above her head resumed, closer now. Plaster cracked faintly along the seam where ceiling met wall. Dust drifted down in soft gray threads. She stepped backward. Her heel hit something soft. She looked down. A crow, dead. Its body lay twisted on the tile behind her, though she hadn't seen it there moments before. Its eyes were open, unclouded, watching. Her pulse stumbled. No blood, no impact marks, just placed. The red lights flickered again, and the ceiling panel directly above her shifted, not falling, sliding. A narrow seam opened in the dark, blackness inside. Then, a claw. Long, hooked, bone-white at the knuckles, feathered along the forearm. It gripped the edge of the opening and pulled downward slowly. The panel bent, metal groaned. Remi backed away, breath shallow now. "There is a structural explanation," she whispered to herself. The claw withdrew. Silence. The panel settled. Stillness returned. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She swallowed and turned. And froze. At the end of the corridor, partially obscured in red shadow, something stood. Too tall. Its head tilted slightly. Half of its face reflected pale under the emergency glow, bone exposed in the shape of a human skull fused into avian curvature. The lower half feathered, dark, layered. Multiple eyes blinked independently across its brow. It did not move toward her. It watched. Her body reacted before her mind did, cold flooding her limbs, a tremor beginning in her fingers. It inhaled. The sound was wet, deep. Then it spoke.
Remilia.
Her full name, no echo, no layered distortion, just voice, human. The red light pulsed once, and it was gone. The corridor stood empty, only the dead crow remained at her feet. Her ears rang faintly, the metallic taste filled her mouth again. It knows me. The thought slipped in uninvited. From somewhere deeper in the building, another scream, this one longer, then abruptly cut. The overhead seam in the ceiling widened further, and this time, more claws reached through. When the door sealed between them, Odin didn't panic immediately. He cataloged. Material, reinforced steel, lock type, magnetic seal, lighting shift, emergency protocol. He forced his breathing steady. "Remi!" he shouted again. No response. The corridor he stood in was narrower than the main hall. No polished tile here, just older linoleum and exposed piping along the ceiling. The red lights didn't reach this far. Instead, dim fluorescence flickered intermittently, casting long strips of sickly white across the walls. The smell hit him first. Dust, paper, and something coppery underneath. A sign at the end of the hall read, "Archival access, authorized personnel only." The door beneath it stood slightly ajar. The drag overhead echoed faintly, distant but present. Odin swallowed. "If this is a systems check," he muttered, "it's theatrically timed." He pushed the door open. The records room was massive, rows of shelving stretching into dimness, boxes labeled by decade, filing cabinets older than the Institute's modern wings. A historian's treasure, a patient's nightmare. He moved quickly now, adrenaline sharpening his focus. The earliest records were handwritten, pre-state ownership, pre-renovation. The letterhead read, Corvus Ridge Sanatorium, 1689. Odin's pulse jumped. That date didn't align with the official founding. He flipped through brittle pages. Patient intake descriptions were unusual. Subject exhibits avian fixation, Subject reports auditory wing phenomena. Subject expresses willingness to ascend. He froze. The word again. Not modern delusion. Historical, repeated across centuries. A low vibration pulsed through the floorboards. Subtle, rhythmic. He looked up. Dust trembled along the shelves. He reached deeper into the files, a sealed envelope marked Patient 0, restricted. His hand hovered. The drag above the ceiling intensified briefly. Closer now. He tore the envelope open. Inside, a photograph, black and white, a woman restrained to a hospital bed, eyes open, alert, unaging. The date beneath the image read 1894. Odin's throat tightened. There were additional photos, 1902, 1903, 1904, 1905. All identical, no aging, no physical degradation. Same eyes, same expression, alive across centuries. His gaze dropped to the final image clipped at the back. Recent. Color photograph. Taken within the last year. She had not changed. The caption beneath read, Anchor status, stable. A handwritten note scrawled below, bloodline compatibility required for expansion. Odin's stomach turned. Another file slid loose from the envelope, different name, different patient. Klaust Elara, 1993. His breath stopped. The image attached showed a woman mid-transformation, bone emerging along the brow, feather growth along the shoulders. Eyes terrified, alive, not sedated. Date of status, ascended. The lights flickered violently overhead. The vibration beneath his feet deepened. A soft sound came from the far end of the records room. Not shelves shifting, not pipes. Breathing, wet, measured. Odin slowly turned. At the end of the aisle, partially obscured in shadow between the shelves, a wing unfolded, feathers brushing the metal racks with a slow, deliberate rasp. Multiple eyes blinked open in the darkness. He didn't scream. He stepped backward carefully. The photograph of Elara Klaust trembled in his grip. "Remi," he whispered. The wing shifted. The shelf behind it bent slightly underweight. And from the darkness, a calm, layered voice echoed softly between the stacks.
Memory always returns.
Remi didn't run. Running meant prey. She moved backward slowly instead, breath measured, eyes fixed on the widening seam in the ceiling. More claws pierced through. The panel tore free entirely this time, crashing to the floor with metallic finality. Above her was not insulation, not wiring. A hollow cavity large enough to house something enormous. A wing slid down first. Feathers blacker than the red light could soften, layered, dense. The tips scraped the walls, leaving faint white streaks where bone met plaster. Then the body descended. It unfolded in sections, jointed, deliberate, until it stood fully upright before her. The Avis Umbra was taller than the corridor allowed. Its skull face tilted, half bone, half beak, multiple eyes blinked open across its brow in asynchronous rhythm. Its taloned feet clicked against tile. It inhaled deeply.
Remilia.
It repeated. Her name vibrated through her ribs. She swallowed. You are not real, she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The creature stepped closer. The air around it felt colder.
Healing requires surrender,
It replied calmly. The corridor doors behind her burst open in unison. Orderlies stepped out first, not running, not panicked. Walking, eyes vacant, their movements synchronized. Behind them, Dr. Kessler emerged. And Malcolm. Remi's stomach dropped. Malcolm met her gaze without apology. This is mercy, he said softly. You were always meant to return. Her pulse roared in her ears. You set this up, she breathed. You were chosen, he corrected. The saints moved around her now, 3 of them, wings scraping, multiple eyes watching. They did not strike. They herded, guiding her down the corridor, toward a door she had not seen before. Seamless within the wall, it opened silently. Beyond it lay a chamber unlike the sterile halls above. Stone, old, circular, carved with avian sigils that pulsed faintly under red emergency light. At the center stood a raised platform, and upon it, a woman restrained by polished medical apparatus, IV lines threaded into both arms, blood cycling through clear tubing into suspended glass vessels. Her eyes were open, ancient, unblinking. Patient 0. Remi felt something inside her chest fracture. She is the anchor, Malcolm said quietly behind her. And you are the bridge. A second shape stepped forward from the far side of the chamber, larger than the others, its wings folded inward slowly, its skull face tilted, the lower half feathered black. But the eyes, human, familiar. The creature approached without aggression. It stopped only a foot away. Up close, Remi could see faint traces of something beneath the bone structure, a scar at the edge of the jawline. One she remembered from childhood photographs. The creature's head tilted the way she did when thinking. And then it hummed, a lullaby in Latin. Her knees weakened. No, she whispered. The creature reached out, not to strike, to touch her cheek with the back of its claw, cold bone-brushed skin.
Remilia.
Not layered, not divine, just tired. Malcolm's voice cut through gently. Blood recognizes blood. One of the saints seized her wrist. A blade flashed. Pain bloomed sharp and bright as her skin split. Her blood fell. It did not hit the floor. The tubing rerouted instantly, mechanical arms adjusting. Her blood merged into the glass vessel above patient 0. The liquid darkened, the chamber vibrated. Patient 0's eyes widened slightly. For the first time. They moved. The saints inhaled in unison. The stone floor pulsed faintly beneath her feet. Her veins burned, not surface pain, deep, as if something inside her had been waiting. Her mother's claw tightened on her shoulder.
Ascension.
She whispered. Remi screamed, and the lights went out. The darkness did not last. It ruptured. A concussive blast tore through the chamber, shaking stone loose from the ceiling. Emergency lights sparked back to life in erratic pulses as smoke filled the air. Odin stood at the chamber entrance, a fire extinguisher clutched in one hand, archival papers burning behind him. Remi. Flames licked across the ritual sigils carved into the floor, glass vessels shattered overhead, raining fragments and diluted blood. The saints recoiled, not in fear, but in disruption, wings battered against stone, scattering embers. Remi collapsed to her knees. Her veins still burned. Patient Zero's restraints sparked violently, machinery malfunctioning as smoke choked the air. Malcolm stumbled backward, coughing. "This is reckless," he shouted. Odin ignored him. He grabbed Remi under the arms and hauled her upright. Her skin felt cold. Too cold. Her eyes met his. And for a fraction of a second, he saw something flicker behind them. Not possession, not absence. Awareness widening. "Can you move?" he demanded. She nodded once. Her voice came out raw. "They're still here." Behind them, the largest saint, her mother, remained unmoving in the chaos. Not attacking, watching. Flames reflected in the bone curve of her skull face. As Remi and Odin reached the chamber threshold, the creature spoke once more.
Thought returns to memory.
The words were almost gentle. Then the ceiling gave way. Stone crashed between them and the chamber, sealing it in fire and smoke. Outside, sirens wailed through thinning fog. Corvus Ridge's upper floors burned in controlled lines. Not total destruction, contained. Fire crews swarmed the grounds. State officials shouted orders. Media vans gathered at the ridge entrance. It would be called an electrical failure, a tragic accident. Remi sat on the back of an ambulance, oxygen mask pressed loosely against her face. Her pulse had steadied, too steady. Odin knelt in front of her. "You're safe," he said, though his voice shook. She removed the mask slowly. The world sounded clearer, layered, distinct. She could hear the flutter of wings above the smoke. Not chaos, pattern. She looked up. Dozens of crows perched along the Institute's roofline, silent, watching her. Not the building, her. Odin followed her gaze. "Why are they still here?" he whispered. Remi lifted her hand. A black feather drifted down and landed in her palm. It did not fall. It rested there, warm. Her veins pulsed faintly beneath her skin, darker threads barely visible under the surface. Not spreading, not yet. "They're not here for the building," she said quietly. One crow detached from the roof. It landed on the ambulance railing beside her. It bowed its head. She felt the vibration in her bones again. Subtle, rhythmic, alive. Odin saw it too, the way the birds leaned inward slightly when she moved. "Remi," he began. She met his eyes. "I'm not finished," she said. Not afraid, not fully. Above the smoke, more crows gathered in widening circles, and far behind the flames, deep within Corvus Ridge's remaining structure, something vast shifted in the darkness, watching her leave.
They told the press it was a systems failure. Electrical instability, structural compromise, temporary closure. Corvus Ridge reopened 3 weeks later. New board members, new oversight, same ridge. I drive past it sometimes. Not because I have to, because I want to see if they're watching. They are. The fog still gathers in the early mornings, thinner near the cemetery, thicker near the east wing. Odin thinks the infection is dormant. He uses clinical words. Mutation threshold, dormancy markers, adaptive cellular behavior. He doesn't say what we're both thinking. Compatibility. The veins along my wrists darken when the air pressure changes, just faintly, like ink beneath skin. I hear them sometimes. Not loudly, not commands. Just movement, weight shifting above ceilings, the sound of wings stretching in tight spaces. They aren't angry. They're patient. The birds follow me now. Not everywhere, but enough. They perch outside my apartment window, on power lines when I walk home, on the edge of Odin's car when he pretends not to notice. They don't caw. They wait. I dreamed of the corridor again last night. It didn't feel endless this time. It felt familiar. I wasn't running. At the end of it, the door was open, and something stood beyond it. Not reaching, not hunting. Waiting. I woke before I stepped through. But I think next time, I won't. The doctors call it trauma imprinting. Odin calls it inherited memory. The saints call it ascension. I don't call it anything. Not yet. Above the city tonight, the birds are circling again. Patterned, measured. As if mapping something new. As if preparing. My blood feels warm. And when I close my eyes, I can almost remember how to unfold my wings.